you keep a secret? I've been doing some beta testing for L'Atelier d'Arnaud, and I got something really cool to show you. Stick around and find out. So if you're watching this video, it probably means that L'Atelier d'Arnaud has now released his brand spanking new board that I have had the honor to be able to beta test in the background for him. Please welcome to the Big Lebowski family of boards that works with the Dude's Cab, the MX Donny board. This has got a lot of cool features to it, so let's talk about it. All right, so first off, this MX Donny board's sole purpose in life is to be able to control your addressable LED strips and your matrices. So much like a Teensy inside of a Octoboard or a Teensy inside of the Teen Cab or a Wemos, this MX Donny can control up to well over 4,000 LEDs, and if you keep them less than 512 LEDs per port, then you will have your 60 frames per second, which is really important when we're dealing with our matrices and different animations on that. So the MX Donny board is the first of its kind for addressable LED boards that does not require a cabinet file or a cabinet.xml file. That's pretty cool. The other cool thing about this is there are 2 ports here that we can connect with JST cables to some unused or some spare connections on the Dude's Cab. And so now all that processing power from the 2 Raspberry Pi controllers on the Dude Cab can now start taking over the control of this MX Donny board. How cool is that? Now, setting this MX Donny board up could not be any easier. We've got our spare 0 and spare 1. We're going to get some JST connectors that you can connect this to the Dude's Cab. So these are the JST connectors to the spare 0 and the spare 1 connection on the Dude's Cab. So just go ahead and plug those in. So in order to do some beta testing, and if you guys wanted to do some bench testing of the parts before you put them into your cab, I've got this set up like this. It looks a little daunting, but I'll explain it all for you here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those 16 by 16 LED HD panels for the matrix. I have 2 144 LED strips for my left and right playfields on the side of the monitor. I've got 2 144 strips for the under the cab lighting and 2 for behind the back box, as well as these full ring panels for our speakers. So wiring here is real quite easy. Each of these LED strips has a 3-color wire coming off of it. So the red wire is going to need our 5-volt positive. So I've got a power distribution block set up here, so all of the red wires are going to here. The white wires are ground, so they are all going to the black distribution block. And then the green wires are our signal wires that have to get hooked up to our Donny. So I have all of the signal wires going to this quick connect, a green connector that goes onto the Donny. And when you lay this out, it's just a matter of remembering, maybe writing down what each signal wire is so that when you go to put it into the configurator, you'll know what you're doing. Now, when you lay this out, you're going to want to make sure that you understand which signal wire is coming from which panel. So on the MX Donny, ports 1 through 6 are each one of these panels has its own port. That way I can ensure that this is going to have a nice refresh rate and not have any issues with HD animations later. Now, port 7 is controlling the left and right side playfield strips as well as these speaker panels. And then the last port is controlling all of the back box and behind the box lighting. So I recommend jotting this down so that when you go to do your configurator, it won't be so confusing for you. And when we're ready to test here, I'm going to put a power supply that I have in the shop so that I can put 5 volts here and the ground for the power for these lights. Okay, then we take our MX Donny board and simply plug in the quick connector with our signal wires attached. And then to test this setup using Pinup Popper and VPX, I have a couple buttons here that I've got pre-wired to connect to the Dude's Cab so that we can just cycle the tables in Pinup Popper and start and exit and use our flippers inside of VPX. So go ahead and connect these. And if you're not sure about this, I will post a video above on how to get the Dude's Cab set up for you. Then the very last thing we do is we need a USB-C cable to connect the Dude's Cab to our computer. Okay, then I've got a benchtop power supply here set to 5 volts, and I've got the positive and the negative going to that power distribution block. All right, once you've plugged your USB to your PC, you're going to double left click on the Dude's Cab configurator, and then you're going to connect to it. Now, when it gets released, I'm assuming that the firmware version will be different than my beta test here, so all you got to do is Go over to here and select whatever the newest firmware is, and then go ahead and click Flash Firmware. Now, one of the first things you're going to notice right off the bat is that there's a new tab over here called Addressable LEDs. So go ahead and click on that. Now, when you get to yours is going to be completely empty here. So you're going to click on this for enabled, and then you're going to start filling in some stuff here. So right at the top, it shows you that there's 8 available data lines to a total of 6,000 LEDs maximum for this setup right here. And right now, currently, in my little benchtop setup, I've got 2,656 LEDs. Now, LED chipset, if it's not already, you can set it to WS2812B. That's basically the type of LED strips you're using. I'm not using an LED Wiz, so we can leave that one. So this test on reset and test on connect simply does what it tells you. Basically, once you connect it, it will try to do this pattern, and you can pick whatever pattern you want here, or if you don't want these test things to happen at all, you can just put none. And then this one is on a reset. And the duration just simply slows down the animation so that you maybe have time to check out something or follow a pattern or whatever. Test brightness, this is when you do the test, how bright it is. Okay, when we get this thing all hooked up with what's down below, this is where you can actually test it manually. So you can pick your patterns and then the duration or how fast that pattern is going to go. And then when you click the launch test button, it'll show you the test. Then you can figure out your patterns and figure out if everything's working properly. Now, when you go to put yours in here, it is going to be blank. So what you're going to start with is line 0, and you're going to come up over to here, and you're going to go add an LED strip. Okay, and then because this is for my matrix, I'm going to split this up into several splits. So there's 6 panels, so I want 6 ports being used so that I can keep that 60 hertz refresh. But in this part here, we're going to specify what the entire matrix is. So for width, we're going to put 96 long, so that's basically 6 of those 16 by 16 panels. So 16 times 6 is 96, and then the height is 16. And then because it's our first one for this board, you can put it as 1 for your DOF output number. And then if you click on this Snap-on RGB DOF, the very next DOF output number you put, when you go to move this cursor over, will only hop over in sections of 3. So the next one would be 4, because for the RGB it needs channel 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is open for the next one, which would be 4, 5, 6, and so on. So if you have this snap-on, it automatically does that for you, so you don't make a mistake that way. Okay, fading, you can leave this as is, the Swiss lizards, and then LED arrangement depends on the pattern of where the LEDs are going to move. Now, I have a really good video. I'll post a link above so that you can figure out exactly what this means. But essentially, you are picking the arrangement on this matrix, for example, where the LEDs are going to start and the direction they go. So for these CSD panels, and I'm starting with the far right panel, the LEDs start at the very top and go down, and then it alternates. So it goes top down, top down, top down, and it starts at the right and it goes over to the left. So for me, I'm going to be putting that. If yours is a little different, you just simply go to the pull down and select what you need. Okay, these ones will work with RBG for the color order, and then brightness. This is the brightness of each individual thing that you want. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit so they're not so blaringly bright. Now, at this point, you can see that this is one split of 6 splits. And each split here has 256 LEDs, so that's one of those 16 by 16 panels. And when you add all 6 of them together, you end up with 1,536 LEDs. Now, the way you add a split is once you've got one LED strip here, you're going to go over to here and go add a split. As simple as that. Now, for the matrix, I had to add, so this is the first one, second one, and you're going to specify which each one is. So this is second panel, third panel, fourth panel, fifth panel, sixth panel, and notice they're all the same. They're all 256 LEDs. And then I actually just added this one to show you what it meant by adding a strip. So we're actually just going to delete this one. So now by doing this, I'm using up 6 of the channels. So each matrix is going to get their very own port for a total of 6 ports. Okay, now moving on to the second last line or channel for this MX Donny is we have our right playfield strip. It's got 144 LEDs. So once again, on line 6, you would go add a LED, type what you want, and then we want the width to be 144 for that strip, and it's only one LED strip, so height of 1. And then if you'll notice, the DOF output number is 19, and that's because we've already used up the previous DOF output numbers in sections of 3 to cover that matrix. Okay, since this is a right playfield strip, we'll have it on the top down, alternate right left, but really doesn't matter because there's only one strip. Now, in order to save room, and I need to be conservative with my ports that I have left, on that same port, I'm also adding my left side playfield strip. So add another strip, or add a split. Make it 144 width, height of 1. Notice the DOF is moved up by 3. This one's top down alternating left to right, which doesn't really matter because there's only one per strip. Okay, and then on that same port, I've also added my left and right speakers. So the left and right speakers are all set up together. So those LED rings, when you add them all up, they end up being 256 LEDs. But I am treating them as a single long strip. So 256 long, height of 1. Notice the DOF is once again jumped by another 3. And this pattern really doesn't matter. You can play with whatever pattern you want for your speakers. And then the very last output, I have put my undercab lighting and my behind the back box lighting all on one. So there is 576 LEDs in total, and I just made it the one length, width of 576, and the height of 1. And once again, the DOF number has increased by 3 again. Okay, now when you've gone and put all this info for your build and how many LEDs you have in your strips, etc., when you're done, you're going to want to come up here and press Send Config and save to memory. And once you've done that, you can actually go over here and you can launch your test. Now, I like using the laser test because this also shows you the patterns, especially for the matrix, so that you can figure out what is what. So if I launch the test here, you can see it's gone from the right to the left and alternating top and down. There's the playfield strips and speakers, and there's the back box and under cab, and it will cycle through the colors so you get another chance at it. If the pattern does go too quick on the matrix, you can change the duration to even longer so that you can make sure that it is top down instead of up down, etc. All right, cool. So that was the laser test, and if I shorten the duration here, we can go through the other ones just to show you. So there's an RGB test. Click launch. That's just flashing the colors all at once on all the strips. And then the colors, we'll go through the colors. Now, one thing I thought people might find interesting is kind of this power supply actually shows me how much amperage it's pulling. So if you watch, as the colors change, you'll be able to see the amperage kind of cycle. And it gives you an idea of how much amperage 2,656 LEDs are using. So red, green, blue, yellow, cyan, purple, yellow, white. So you can see it wasn't that much. All right, now the very last thing we need to do is, if you go back to the general page, right down here in the bottom corner is a little button, and this is where, if your Dude's Cab firmware needs to have a custom DLL file in order for DOF to work, this is where it's going to be. Now, I'm not sure what Arnaud's is planning for when he releases this, whether MGRNet is going to have the DLL files updated and there won't need to be have this done. But in case it does, I'm going to show you this, and then maybe Arnaud can clarify later. So if you click on this, guys, if you open up the 32-bit and you right-click copy this DLL file, And then you go to your this PC, C drive, direct output. 32-bit is the x86, so open that up. There is the file that we need to replace. I would recommend making a backup and just putting it in a folder so that if you, worst case scenario, you can put the old ones back. Right click paste. It's going to ask you, do you want to replace it? Say yes. Okay, that's the 32-bit. And then the 64-bit. We're going to right-click copy that DLL file, and then right-click paste into the 64 file, click replace, and there we go. All right, let's close this up. Okay, the very last thing we need to do is go to our VP Universe config tool. So here it is here. And then basically just click on anything and it's going to make you log in. Okay, and if you haven't got an account set up yet, then you just go ahead and sign up for an account. Otherwise, log yourself in. Pick whatever cabinet you're working on. So working on the big budget VPIN here. Go over to cabinet, left click on it, and we are going to go to devices. Now mine's already set up here, so I'm kind of showing you what you have to do as opposed to starting it from scratch. So here's our dude's cab. We are going to want to add a WS2811 board. That is going to be our MX Donny board essentially. So there I've added one. Then go over to cabinet, and now you're going to go to port assignments. And then up here where it says device, you can go to the pull down, and then you're going to select the board that you're wanting to configure. So your WS2811. So if you remember from our configurator, we have 6 different ports or 6 different lines being run off that MX Donny that are just for the matrix. So we've got port 1, and once again it's RGB, so red, green, blue for 1 port, so you have to have 3 for that matrix. And if you're not sure how to do that, you basically just pull down and find the matrix. Okay, and then, so this would be the very first panel, this would be the second panel, third panel, and fourth panel, fifth panel, and then this is our last 6th panel. So you can see that the ports have started to add up. And if you remember in the configurator, when we started the next line, which was the 7th line on the MX Donny board, we had to put a DOF of 19. And so that's got to be DOF port 19 for the playfield right strip. So select from the list there for your playfield right. Once again, it takes 3. And then we've got our playfield left on these 3 ports. And if you remember, that line also shows the speakers as well. Okay, now I've got speakers custom here, so I'll show you that in a sec. It's basically just combining some stuff, combining toys. So once you've made the combined toys, you would go up here and select your custom edition. Okay, and then if you remember correctly, the last line on the MX Donny board, the 8th one, was for the under cab and the back box. And it is all on one line. So we've got the last port for 28, 29, 30 here for RGB undercab complex MX. Now these are the basic things that you can pull down from the menu. If you have to make a custom one, then all you do is you go back over to here, and you're going to go to combine toys. Okay, now once again, this is all my custom toys that I use to pull down for those DOF settings. So matrix for me is what I named this custom toy, and I called it an RGB addressable, and I want all 3 of these functions on that matrix. And that's for the matrix one, and then there's a playfield right one, so it's these 2 combined. Playfield left is the same except for left. And then for the speakers custom, these are the effects that I like, so that's what I've put together as a custom combo. Now, if you have to make a new combo, you start by giving it a name, and then you can basically pull down from the list and add any of these kind of features that you want on that, save it, and then it'll pop up as your combo name in that list when you're selecting the port stuff. So for example, if I go back to port assignments, make sure I'm back on that WS28. So if I wanted to add another thing here and I had a new custom toy, you just have to scroll down through all the stuff here. And you can see individually these are all listed, but at the bottom will be all of your custom stuff that you've made separately. So there it is there, right? There's my matrix, my playfield left, playfield right, and custom speakers. So you just have to find it from there and then you can select it. Now, if I went too quick or this still doesn't really make 100% sense to you, I will post a video above for an older video where I showed you how to do this for setting up DOF and getting addressable LEDs working. So I'll send you to that so you can get all the other info that you may have missed in this video. Okay, now once you have selected all of these and they're exactly how you like them, we need to update this. So go ahead and click Update. And then we have to click here for Generate Config. Okay, once that's done, you can go ahead and go to where that folder is in your download. You can just double left click on that to open it up. You're going to left click and drag and select all of this. Right click Copy. And then kind of take a look at the files and what they look like so that you know where this has got to go and what's got to get replaced. So we've got a bunch of direct output config files and our direct output shapes files. So now we can go to C drive, direct output, and there you go. Those are those same files there that we need to replace. So simply right click, paste, and it's going to say, do you want to replace them? Click yes. And that's it. So we can close this up and then go ahead and start Pinup Popper. Okay, there is the test that I left on when it connects. So it is definitely working. And then Pinup Popper has about a 10 to 15 second delay before the patterns start, which they've already started, so that's awesome. And then as we change the tables, you're gonna see the patterns change. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful. Lots of LED lights. Awesome. Okay, and then let's go into a game here.
Please wait. I am now loading up the game. Have fun.
Once again, this is our basic test that we left on, so you can turn this off so it doesn't do this every time you cycle into a game. Okay, and then here's the game start. So we've got our playfield strip saying, hey, your ball is in the plunger lane, get it out of here. Speaker lights are lit up. And there we go. VPX, DOF, addressable LED beauties. All right, there's a wrap in another video from Way of the Wrench, this time on introducing the new MX Donny board from L'Atelier d'Arnaud. What a cool little board, and I absolutely love how it's adding even more functions to the Dude's Cab. It goes to show how powerful this Dude's Cab is and how slick it is already. Special thank you to Arnaud for sending me the board and also for letting me be on your beta testing team. That was kind of a neat experience for me, and I'm happy to help for the community. If you have any questions about the setup in here or using the configurator, put it down in the comment section below and I will help you out as much as possible. And if you haven't already, why don't you check us out on Instagram at Way of the Wrench, and that way you can see what's going on in the shop in between videos. Till next time, take it easy.